The RTX 3060 12GB is one of the GOAT. It has decent performance, but more importantly, it had 12GB of VRAM. The question is it time for you to upgrade this to the RTX 5060? Okay. Before you burn me and put me on the stake, just hear me out. The RTX 3060 12GB right now in the used market is currently sold at $300, and that's because of AI and people using those 12GB of VRAM. The RTX 5060 can be bought at $310 when it's on sale. Yes, it's over MSRP, but if you're a gamer, should you take advantage of this situation right now? Should you sell your 3060 and buy a 5060? So we're going to be doing the same thing. We're going to compare both of these cards and we're going to run it in multiple games with realistic settings, 1080p, 1440p, and 4K. Let's start with our first game, Arc Raiders, and we've got low settings in here because we want to see all the rats. And look at that one, boys. 197 FPS against 120. That's a huge difference, right? Huge difference. Let's go to another game. Cyberpunk 2077. This is ultra settings, 1080p. And look at that one. Once again, we've got over 50% gains with the 5060. And we're not even maxing out our VRAM in here at 1080p ultra settings. Let's go to another game, Oblivion Remastered. Now this game, as you know, loves VRAM. So we've got DLSS in here for both cards. And look at that one, boys. Look at that one. We're still getting really significant gains with the 5060. Although there are still stuttering, but that's normal for this game. Let's move on to our massive multiplayer shooters. And we've got Battlefield 6 in here over 140, almost 50% lead against the 3060. Let's see how this one turns out later on when we go to 1440p and we do some upscaling. Okay, Delta Force now, and our walking benchmark. Look at that one, boys. 220 FPS, 250 FPS against 170 FPS, over 50% lead again. Well, more or less 50% lead once again on our walking benchmark. On our firing benchmark, it's the same thing. You're getting over 40% gains with the 5060. It's just a superior card compared to the 3060. And PUBG, oh, it's the same thing. Over 40% gains for the 5060. The lows still significant lead in here against the 3060. Let's move down to our competitive games like Fortnite. There we go, Fortnite, boys, and the lead is not that high. I mean, it's still about 11% better compared to the 3060. Look at the utilization of our 3060. We've almost maxed out our, well, actually we've maxed out our 3060 in here against the 5060. 11% gain. I think that's actually pretty good for competitive games. Let's move on to Valorant, and this one's another competitive game, right? And we're still like getting some good gains, especially on the lows with our 5060 and Valorant. Okay, let's move on to our hero shooters, starting off with Apex Legends, and bang, still getting those leads, boys. Over 30% lead against the 3060. Let's look at the static benchmark. We're back again to 40%, like over 40% lead with our 5060. So I think you can see the pattern here, right? And Marvel Rivals, let's see, same thing, over 40% gains with our 5060. You did lose a little bit in there with our 0.1% loss, but that's about it. Helldivers 2 in here, almost 50%, right? That's a night and day difference, boys. 200 FPS against 130, man. And that's the same thing in our stratagem benchmark. Battle of XL2, and look at that one. Still significant lead in favor to the 5060. 35% beta. It's not 40%, but that's still a big chunk, man. Let's go to our last game, World of Tanks. And as I've mentioned before, we put this game because we want to see a different engine. So we're getting about 200 FPS, 230 with our 5060 against 160. Still over 40% lead. Okay, let's go with 1440p, and we've got Arc Raiders in here, 1440p with DLSS quality on both cards, and we've got 155 on our 5060 and 100 on our 3060. That's still a significant lead. We're maintaining that one in Arc Raiders. Let's go to Cyberpunk 2077. We've got ultra settings in here, and we've got DLSS quality, and look at that one. Right? About 78 FPS against 51. That's what? Still 53% better compared to our 3060. Significant lead. Oblivion Remastered right now, and as I've said before, this game is pretty heavy on the graphics card. And you can see that even with 12 gigabytes of VRAM, we are still stuttering with our 3060 in here. There's actually a lot of micro stutter in here compared to the 5060. There's not much that the 12 gigabyte VRAM can do about this game. Let's go to Battlefield 6 now, and this is DLSS 4 quality, right? 1440p DLSS 4 quality, and we're still maintaining that huge lead with the 5060, 40% better on 1% low, so that's pretty significant. Let's try DLSS 4.5, which we know is a superior video quality compared to DLSS 4. And look at that one, boys. The lead of the RTX 5060 is much larger compared to the 3060. Yes, it's only about 100 FPS against 50 FPS, but we're just setting a benchmark here. Obviously, you could lower down the settings of the DLSS in here. All right, Delta Force now, and our walking benchmark was still maintaining about 40% lead over the 3060. So it seems like it's the same trend when we're going through our 1440p, but let's see, right? On our firing benchmark, it's the same thing. That's actually a huge lead. And PUBG now, and we're still getting really huge FPS with our 5060. 190 against 130, pretty significant. Okay, let's move on to our competitive shooters. Fortnite once again, and this is 1440p performance mode DX12, and we've almost maxed out our 5060 while previously we've already maxed out our 3060 at 1080p. Now, yes, still maxed out at 1440p, obviously, and we are getting 40% better performance here with our 5060. Let's go to Valorant, and in Valorant, the average FPS is more or less the same, right? But the lows is where the 5060 is better in here compared to the 3060. I don't know, I can't explain, but it definitely has better lows here compared to the 3060. Let's move on to our hero shooters, and first up is Apex Legends on our heavy action scene. Wow. Right, so you're only getting about double digits on our 3060 while we're getting like high numbers on our 5060, and this is the same on our static scene. Yes, we're still maintaining 40% lead on a static scene, right? 210 FPS against about 140 FPS. Let's move on to Marvel Rivals. We've got DLSS in here set to quality, and we're getting about like 43% better FPS with our 5060 against the RTX 3060. Okay, Helldivers 2 now, and on our running benchmark, it's the same thing. That's a huge difference, a huge gap there, huge gap, 140 against about 100. And on our stratagem benchmark, same thing. We're still maintaining about that 40% lead, like over 40% lead. Let's go to Path of Exile 2, and we've got DLSS in here set to quality. And look at the difference, boys. We're now back to the 50% difference, right? 53% gap. We've maxed out both graphics card in here, but that's a really significant lead. Back to World of Tanks, and look at that one, boys. We've got 160 FPS against 105 FPS. That's clearly better. Like, you can tell that the 5060 is much more superior compared to the 3060. I know both of these cards are not designed for 4K, but we might as well. So we've got Arc Raiders in here, 4K, DLSS, but we've set it to performance setting, and actually you can still play this one with the 5060, whereas with the 3060 it's only about like 70 FPS in here. So we're still getting that huge lead over the 3060. When we go to Cyberpunk 2077, we've got ultra settings in here, but we've set the DLSS to performance to be realistic, right? Because we're trying to aim for 60 FPS in here. And with the 5060, you can get about 58, while on the 3060, that's 35, man. That's pretty poor. Right, so you're getting about like 58% lead in here. And on PUBG, yes, we got PUBG in here in 4K because you do want that visibility advantage in PUBG, and you're still getting actually decent FPS with our 5060 compared to a 3060. You're only getting about like 80 plus with the 3060. Well, with the 5060, this is actually doable if you're playing 4K in competitive settings, about 120 FPS. And lastly, we've got World of Tanks at 4K Ultra SD settings, right? And you can see the stutters there with our 3060, man. Like, yeah, those are some stutters there, right? So you're only getting about 60 FPS, 58 FPS with the 3060. Well, you're getting almost 49% or almost 50% with the 5060. So clearly superior card. Do I need to say anything else? Let's look at the numbers here. At 1080p, the 5060 is about 41% better in terms of average FPS against the RTX 3060 12GB. At 1% 1% lows, it's 35% better. At 0.1% lows, it is 50% better. There is an outlier in here wherein we got like worse 0.1% lows in Apex Legends, but generally it is much better than the 3060, although it only has 8GB of VRAM. At 1440p, the 5060 is about 45% better in terms of average FPS, 36% better in terms of 1% lows, and 34% better in terms of 0.1% lows. Yes, the 0.1% lows of the 5060 is worse on Oblivion. That's more or less a VRAM scenario. And if you look at DLSS 4 against DLSS 4.5 and Battlefield 6, that's about 82% performance bump for the 5060. Think about that. Obviously, NVIDIA is pushing their technology in the newer cards. Yes, the older cards can do it, but if you want better performance, obviously you can go with the 5060. And 4K, it's the same story here, right? Average FPS is about 50% better in favor to the 5060, and 1% lows, it's 43% better, and on the 0.1% lows, it's about almost 50% better. The raw numbers in here are not that high, but it is still playable, right? So it is playable with the 5060, not so much with the 3060, even though it has 12GB of VRAM. It's undeniable that the gaming performance of the RTX 5060 is much more superior compared to the RTX 3060 12GB. There's no question there. And it also consumes lesser power, which makes it overall efficient because it can produce more FPS at lesser power. So if you're not doing any VRAM intensive tasks, like video editing with DaVinci Resolve, Blender, or if you're doing like a budget Unreal Engine development to utilize that VRAM, and you're not doing any AI work and you're only gaming, the RTX 5060 actually makes sense for you. I think there's a great opportunity here for you. You need to take advantage of this current scenario because, like, think of it, man, not a lot of people watch this channel. So you can sell your 3060 12GB to people who want to use it, and you can get that 50% upgrade on most games. Well, on a lot of games. Oh, one other thing. If you want to see the RTX 5060 go up against something that is just pure raw performance, I've done that recently. We've matched the RTX 5060 against AMD's last generation mid-tier card, the RX 7800 XT, which is just brute force performance. If you want to see that, just click this video right here. I'm just gonna keep pointing at this one until you click it. Just click it. Click it. Click it. Yeah, just click it.